fundraisers, it's Amanda here. I just want to welcome you once more and thank you so much for coming to our first live fundraising webinar, which is Fundraising 101, where we're going to be covering the 5 fundraising buckets, which is my personal favorite fundraising strategy. So we're going to get started now. So as we get started, just make sure that you've got a pen, piece of paper handy so that you can take notes as we're going along. Big welcome to Fundraising 101. Again, this is our very first live fundraising webinar this season. Really excited to be back. I am Amanda, your fundraising coach, fundraising specialist here at Me2We. And again, I wanted to congratulate you all for taking the first or second steps in an amazing, exciting year where you're going to be fundraising and then getting on a plane to an amazing, epic Me2We trip or on your way to Take Action Camp, which is also incredibly amazing. So congratulations. This is going to be a very, very exciting year. And we're here to help make your trip or camp experience happen. No matter what your circumstances are, funding is 100% possible, and we're totally here to help. Me's fundraising program and myself provides you with everything that you'll need to make your dream trip a reality. Many of our participants actually have to fundraise for some or even all of the cost of their Me2We trip, and know that you can do it too. So to give you some numbers, at the end of every year, over 50% of everybody on a Me2We trip has actually fundraised for some, if not all, of the cost of their trip. Right, all of the participants that are signed up to go to on a Me2We trip next summer, about 70% of all your fundraising. So just this way, you're in very good company. You're definitely not in it alone. You not only have your entire Me2We team behind you, but you've got a really great group of fellow fundraisers who are in the very same boat that you are. Just to ask everybody if you're ready for an exciting year. If you are, then buckle up and let's just get started. Who I have not yet had the pleasure of meeting. My name is Amanda and I'm your fundraising coach, and it's so great to webinar meet you. If I haven't spoken to you on the phone or met you in person, this is a great way for us to connect and get to know each other and for you to feel incredible support that you're going to have from myself as well as our entire team here at Me2We. Just want a little bit about my fundraising journey and my experience traveling abroad. I've been working here at Me2We for about 2 years now. I started as the fundraising coach, and I just got hooked. I love fundraising. It's an amazing opportunity to teach you some really great life skills, but also it's a means to get on the most amazing experience of your entire life. So here's a couple of pictures of me on a few of my volunteer travel opportunities. So I've been all over the world, been to Guatemala, I've been to Peru, I've been to India, Indonesia, and Thailand. I also had the opportunity of facilitating a Me2We trip in India last May, and I also worked at our amazing Take Action Camp throughout the summer. So not only do fundraisers fundraise for Me2We trip, but they're also fundraising for Take Action Camp because we have a really awesome camp here in northern Toronto where we send lots and lots of young people to really plan their action plans and how they're going to make a greater impact globally and locally. So that's a little bit about my experience here at Me2We and some of my travel experiences. I'm always willing to share, I'm an open book, always willing to share about my past experiences traveling, but not only traveling. I was just like you. I was sitting in a chair just like you. I was a fundraiser. For my first 2 trips, Guatemala and Indonesia, I had to fundraise for those experiences myself as well. Come to you with lots of travel experience, but also fundraising for that travel experience. I think it's a great means to a great end, but it's also something that I as this webinar goes on, and share with you all of the other amazing skills that I learned as I was fundraising for my trip, but also fundraising in general. So get into the meat and potatoes of our webinar. I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping tips or housekeeping just reminders. I've spoken to a lot of you fundraisers, but also a lot of your parents are really engaged in your fundraising process. So feel free to invite them, have them, attend the webinars with you, or I do record each of the webinars and then upload them to YouTube. So definitely a great idea to share with your parents what you're learning through the fundraising process, so that they're feeling confident that you're going to be able to reach your goals as well. Next, don't forget to take notes for later. I tend to talk pretty quickly, and I do talk a lot, so taking notes when I talk is a great idea, just so that you can make sure that you're getting everything down, especially the stuff that's applicable to you and your fundraising campaign this year. So pen and piece of paper, just going to pause the webinar for 2 seconds to make sure that everybody has a chance to go grab that, because notes are going to be really, really important. Just a little piece of information. Everybody here in attendance at the webinar, everybody's currently on mute. So you can speak, you can yell and scream, and nobody else is going to hear you. If you do have a question towards the end of the webinar, or you have something that you'd like to share with the group, please do let me know, and I'm happy to take you off mute so you can share with the group. But throughout the webinar, just so that I don't have to, there might be dogs barking in the background or paper rustling. Everybody is currently on mute, so you don't have to worry about speaking or anybody hearing you because you are on mute. Next is if you do happen to lose your internet connection, don't panic. This is something that has happened in the past. All you need to do is just log on with the same link and login instructions as you've been given, and you can just join up wherever we currently are. So this webinar isn't a one-time login. You can feel free to log in as many times as you need to, even if your internet does get connected and you have to restart the webinar. If you have questions, which I'm sure some of you will throughout the webinar, please go ahead and type them into the chat room, and I answer those questions at the end of the webinar, especially if they're questions that other people may in hearing the answer to. I'll actually answer them out loud in the webinar itself, so that we can kind of share questions and answer period at the end of the webinar. So when we're done, don't run away. I'm going to address questions at the very end of the webinar. So you'll see the chat function that will look something like this. You have the option of sending your chat to everybody in the webinar, or you also have the option of sending your question directly to me, and you can do that as well. And yes, feel free to type any questions throughout, and I'll make sure that I address those at the end of the webinar. All right, now, do let me know in the chat room, and I will help you troubleshoot the audio. But hopefully, if you followed the instructions on the front page of the webinar, you should be able to hear me chatting. So let's keep moving. If we've got all of our housekeeping tips and tricks all under our belts, let's move on to the exciting webinar portion of our evening. All right, what's the goal for today's webinar? Webinars are going to be a great opportunity for you to really follow along with kind of a presentation on a specific fundraising topic. So after the webinar today, I'm going to kind of outline some of the future topics so that you can kind of start getting excited and putting those into your calendars as well. But I usually have a webinar about every other week, so every 2 weeks, and we cover a different fundraising topic. So today we're going to be covering Fundraising 101. So again, this is the first live fundraising webinar in our webinar series. So this is a really kind of a great spot for us to get started. It's a good jumping off point. I really want to talk about today why I love fundraising. And if you've ever spoken to me on the phone or in person, you've probably gotten that hint before, because I do get really excited, and once you get me started talking about fundraising ideas and ways, strategies, techniques, then it's really tough to get me to stop. So I love fundraising. I think it's an amazing opportunity and a really great, it's a really process to teach some really great skills. And so we're going to go through some of the skills and great things that you're going to learn throughout this process, so it can get everybody really excited about this upcoming fundraising adventure. We're going to talk a little bit about some tips and tricks on how to get started. How do we get that fundraising ball rolling? If you're feeling stuck in a rut, or you're not quite sure what your steps should be, we're going to kind of give you some tips and tricks on how to get the creative juices flowing, if you will. The real heart of this fundraising webinar today is going to be my golden fundraising strategy, which I call the 5 fundraising bucket strategy. Now, I want to make sure everybody knows that this isn't a scientific fundraising strategy. This is something that over my experience and over the years that I've been working with fundraisers here at Me2We, the 5 fundraising bucket strategy seems to be the best strategy for this type of fundraising. I really want to avoid putting all of our eggs in one basket, and we really want to make sure that we're doing a bunch of different unique fundraising ideas so that we're pulling on different networks and different audiences, but I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail when I outline the 5 fundraising buckets. We're talking a little bit about funding example ideas from each bucket. Now, we will go into depth in future webinars on each 5 of these fundraising buckets, but today we're going to give a quick overview of all 5 of them and just a couple of examples from each bucket. Keeping in mind, there's tons and tons of different fundraising ideas that fit in each 5 fundraising buckets, and it's really up to you to figure out what's going to be best for you, what the resources that you have, the network that you have to work with, and really the things that you're good at and really excited to do. So keep in mind that the ideas that you're going to pick from each of these buckets, they're all going to be unique to you, and we'll give you a few ideas, example ideas, but keep in mind that you'll definitely have to adapt each idea to fit what's best for you, right? So if the example idea is a hockey tournament and you've never played hockey, I probably would avoid doing a hockey tournament as a fundraiser for your trip. But if you are in a direction and you take singing lessons, maybe instead of hockey tournament, maybe you teach singing lessons or vocal lessons. So you want to make sure that every time you hear an idea, you think, is that going to work for me with my unique, individual, and amazing talents and skills? Then you're going to want to adapt it a little bit. So we're going to jump right into some of the main topics of today's fundraising webinar. So sometimes fundraisers are stuck in the very beginning phases of fundraising, not quite sure where to start, where to kind of get that first step in, right? So that's a challenge that a lot of your fellow fundraisers oftentimes have. So through a couple of tips and tricks on how the best steps in setting up the most successful fundraising plan. So the first one here, and this may be something that you've kind of done or might seem that's obvious to you, but setting a fundraising goal is very, very important. Fundraisers, really get started, but they aren't quite sure what their overall goal is. So it's difficult for them to start mapping out what they should be doing. So in setting your fundraising goal, you want to make sure you're thinking of everything that you have to spend on for this. So this is including your vaccinations, this is including your insurance, this is including any travel backpack that you're going to need to purchase before your trip. So you want to make sure that you carefully consider all of the things that you're going to need to spend any money on, even a penny, going forward towards your trip. So you're going to start with that number. How much do you need to spend, including your trip cost, right? Your next step is how much money you actually already have saved in the bank. So this might be a savings that you have. This might be a part-time job that you have that you know you're going to make a certain amount of money week over week. This might be your birthday's coming up and you know for a fact that your grandmother gives you $100 every year for your birthday. So you're going to want to put all of that in your in the bank section, add all those numbers up, and they're going to take your in the bank section, in the bank number, which is how much you've already got saved and how much you're going to count on. Subtract that from all of the expenses that you're going to have throughout this entire process, and that's going to be your fundraising goal. So make sure that you're realistic with your goal, that you're being, you're not you're afraid of the numbers, because realistically the numbers aren't going to lie. You're going to need to fundraise what you need to fundraise, and getting that set goal is really important at the outset. And so what helps is if you break your fundraising goal into smaller chunks and then spread those chunks over month to month, we can also actually help you set up a payment plan as well. So if you know your fundraising goal is, $1,000, you want to put $200 each month towards your fundraising goal, and then that gives you the amount of time that you're going to need to fundraise. So that's a great starting off point. Playing with numbers is always good. Get out your handy dandy calculator, because I'm not very good with math in my head either. So I always like to have a calculator and make notes and put your numbers down on paper. So that's the first step. Another important tip in getting started with your fundraising and really making sure that you're as successful as possible, before you even really start fundraising, you want to start being comfortable telling your story. So it could be something that you want to write down, you want to start making some notes. Telling story is important because you really want people to understand why it's important to support you. Why are you passionate about this? What is your goal here? Why is it so important that you go to Kenya and meet the mamas who you do the water walk every day, so that you can come back and advocate for them and continue to make an impact in your community. So get very comfortable with what you're passionate about and telling your story. Why you want to do this, what you're going to be doing while you're or at camp. And get comfortable with that. If you do want to go over any speaking or tips and tricks, feel free to get in touch with us. We always love to chat about this stuff, and we're happy to maybe practice with you over the phone and help you write a script. But you'll never read that script. You want to be talking from the heart. Honestly, guys, the best fundraisers are those who are super passionate and who make eye contact with their donors and really tell a story and really help their donors really feel what you feel. So I can't stress this enough. For me, when I fundraise, this is my number one support system is my story. And the fact that I talk and I love to, I'm very passionate, emotional, and I feel things really, really intensely. So telling that story is my biggest skill when I fundraise, and I think what really helped me reach my goals is I was very confident telling my story, and I was an open book like I am still today. But yeah, share your story. That's a very big piece. Point, as you're building your plan, something that really helps me is making lists. I'm a busy person. I like lists. So something that I think will help all of you in building your plan is starting to make lists of that stand out to you. So as we're going through this webinar, and each of the fundraising buckets, making lists of different people that you want to approach, ideas that you want to try. That's help pull into a big, that'll help you pull these points into a big fundraising plan and make sure that you're maximizing your fundraising. List. I'm a huge fan of calendars. Now I have a probably about 3 or 4 day planners or different fancy calendars that I like to use in order to plan different facets of my life. I know it's strange, but I really, really love calendars. I've got a big whiteboard calendar behind my desk. I have a big whiteboard calendar at home. I feel like if I didn't plan today in a calendar, I probably would be quite forgetful. So staying track really, really is supported by having a calendar or a day planner where you can outline your fundraising plan. You know that you want to have a fundraising event in the new year. You're going to want to put that into your calendar right away, and then you're going to want to plan when you sell tickets. You're going to want to plan we're going to meet with your fundraising team, so you're going to pull some friends together to help you set up and decorate the gym for your event. So you want to meet with your team, a couple of weeks before, so you're going to put that in your calendar. So little milestones, make sure that you have them in your calendar so that you can hold yourself accountable and you can stay on track. So each month, you should have a calendar where you've got all of your plans in each day that you're planning on executing them. Maybe each month you have a target on the top of your calendar, how much you want to fundraise each month. Maybe you have something that you're, a couple notes, things that you're most excited for, but having a calendar will really, really help you stay on track. So that's something that really helped me. Also, for my trips in the past, expanding my fundraising network was something that really increased my fundraising and helped me get to my goal. So an example of this is what I mean by expanding your fundraising network is think about who you have around you to support you. First thing came to mind for me when I fundraised was my parents. To expand my fundraising network, I didn't just ask my friends to sponsor me because, let's be honest, my friends weren't the ones who had the money. It was my parents and my parents' friends and their network. So to expand my fundraising network, I requested that my father send out my story or my information to a bunch of his colleagues by email, and they were potentially interested in supporting me. I used my network and asked them to pass my story along to their network. It really allowed me to expand my fundraising network. So think of all the people that you could possibly know. And this is another thing that you could use when you're making your list. A list of people that you're going to look to help you. And you can start thinking about their networks and their networks. How far can you get that ripple effect? How far can you get spread the word about your campaign? That's going to really be helpful, and it really was for me. And a really great point to kind of consider as you're getting going is thinking about providing value for a donation. Now, a little bit more about this throughout this webinar, but when you think about fundraising, a lot of people think that fundraising is just simply asking for money or asking for donations. Fundraising is so much more than that. I think actually the best form of fundraising is fundraising that provides value in exchange for a donation. So we'll talk more about some examples of value for a donation, but an example of this right now would be, rather than asking for, straight donation, instead you're selling something in getting a monetary contribution in exchange, but you're giving somebody else a product. So this is like, you go to the store, you're a tea, and someone gives you a tea from Tim Hortons, and you're getting a tea, but giving money to the organization. Now what you're going to be doing is not a business necessarily, you're still fundraising. If you provide something in exchange for a donation, whether it's you're selling something or whether it's, maybe you're providing a gift with a donation, or maybe you're providing a workshop with your donation. Again, we'll go into a little bit more detail in this webinar, but considering how you're going to provide value for a donation is going to really help you take it to that next level. All right, so is the time you've all been waiting for. We are going to go through our 5 fundraising buckets and talk a little bit more about what those buckets look like and a couple ideas or examples from each of those buckets. Now, one of the fundraising buckets is I say buckets or fundraising cookie jars, but you know the saying when you want to have your hand in a few different cookie jars, they're saying something like that. But the point of the fundraising buckets is you really want to try and have your hands in a few different fundraising buckets kind of at the same time. So you're kind of pulling from all of these buckets in order to make sure you're maximizing your fundraising. So pulling from one bucket, that's putting all your eggs in one basket. I know basket, buckets, lots of different terms here, but we really want to try and avoid putting all your eggs in one bucket or one basket, so that in case that one fundraiser doesn't succeed the way that you're hoping, you've got a bunch of other fundraising ideas or fundraisers in the works that are going to cover your gaps. So you want to make sure that you're pulling from all 5 of these fundraising buckets, or as many of them as you can at the same time, and this is going to help you maximize your fundraising. And also, if there's parents that are listening, diversify your fundraising portfolio. That's what we're trying to do here. That's a very big economic term, and many people don't really understand what that means, even myself. But you want to diversify your fundraising portfolio. You want to have a bunch of different things going on at the same time, so that you're going to get to your goal as quickly as possible and with as little effort or issues as possible. Okay, so I'm going to go through these fundraising buckets and then kind of walk through some examples of each. Fundraising bucket is online fundraising. This is probably something that a lot of people have kind of thought or heard about, seen online, but the reality is this is a big era, and a lot of people are online, and those who are very could very well donate to you on the internet through a credit card. So online fundraising is going to be a great tool, and I'll kind of talk you through how to maximize the online fundraising as well. Fundraising bucket is sponsors and partnerships. We'll walk through this as well, but sponsorships and partnerships are relationships that you can make with small businesses or local shops and corporations that are potentially able to donate to your trip, or maybe donate an item to your fundraising initiative. So that's something that maybe you can raffle off or have it a silent auction. So they're really great small businesses or local partnerships that you can build in order to gain support for your trip. We'll walk through a couple of those options as well. The fundraising bucket is some item to make a profit. And this is something that I kind of give a sneak peek a little bit earlier, but this would be an example of having something that you sell, like sales, something you would sell for a profit. And an example of this would be our Me Too Weaver Keys that you can purchase online, kit for $50, and then you sell each bracelet for $10. And on each kit, you're going to make a $50 profit. So you're giving them something at value in exchange for their donation by giving them an item that you're selling. So this can be, again, something that you create or something you purchase and mark up and sell for a profit. And we're going to go through a couple of really awesome examples. This is something that a lot of fundraisers have done really well in the past. So I have some really awesome examples to share with you and some really great success stories. Fundraising bucket is fundraising events. And a lot of people think this would be the primary fundraising idea. Have events. This is what a lot of people think of when they think of fundraising. The galas and the auctions and the tournaments. Those are really great fundraising initiatives. Although they do require some really intense work and planning, they can pull in a large amount of money from one single event. So as long as you've got some time to really plan and focus on making sure that you're looking at all of the details, a fundraising event can be great, and we'll talk about some really neat ones that have been successful in the past as well. And fundraising bucket. Now this is kind of a catch-all fundraising bucket, but this will be other fundraising activities. And by activities I mean things that you can do with yourself or your person to raise some money. So this is something that maybe you can go and tutor or give singing lessons, the example that I gave before. Something that you can do to to raise money. So babysitting, dog sitting, pet sitting. We'll give a few more examples of this later in the webinar, but these are going to be simple and easy fundraising activities, things that you can do that aren't going to take up a ton of your time. Fundraising buckets. And if you envision it this way, if you've got your hand in all kind of 5 fundraising buckets at the same time, that means that you've got an online fundraising page you're collecting donations from. You're investigating some potential partnerships and sponsorships. You've maybe connected with a couple of local businesses. Maybe I'm selling Me to We Rafiki bracelets at a craft sale during the holidays. You're also planning to have a fundraising event in the new year, and you're also doing over the holidays, you've got a really awesome babysitting service that you're going to offer to parents and guardians who want to go to their holiday parties or go Christmas shopping or shopping. So you're going to do that. So if you've got all 5 of those kind of initiatives going on at the same time, that's how you're going to maximize your fundraising. And maybe you have a couple of different ideas from each bucket. So that's kind of point of having the fundraising, 5 fundraising buckets, to make sure that you're pulling from each of them at the same time. So now I'm going to go into each bucket and kind of talk a little bit more about some different ways to ensure that you're taking advantage of each of these buckets. So this is really, really exciting news. You are the very first people to see this. This screen here is the designed version of our brand new hot off the press Me to We fundraising pages. Now these are currently being built, and we're very, very close to having them ready. So in the next couple of weeks, before December for sure, you will have access to your very own personal online fundraising page that is directly connected to your Me to We trip. So if someone donates to your page online, that donation goes all the way through the internet to Me to We, and will go directly to your trip. So you don't have to worry about collecting checks or collecting cash. It's a really great way to kind of spread the word about your campaign, because you can also connect with lots of people all over the globe in order to collect donations. Ways to ensure that you're taking as much advantage of your online fundraising page as possible. You're going to want to make sure that you're blasting on social media links to your online fundraising page, so everybody has to not only donate, but also continue to share your campaign with their network. So remember when we talked about using your fundraising network, this is a great way to do that. You can share the link to your online fundraising page with everybody on social media and just ask them if they can't donate to just share. Really great way for you to fundraise. Another one is by sending e-blasts. E-blasts is a way that you can get a large amount of people informed on something by just collecting a bunch of email addresses, and then what you want to do is put all those email addresses into the BCC section of your email, and that way you can send them a little blurb about what you're doing along with the link to your fundraising page. So you send out an e-blast maybe once a month. Maybe you can update people through e-blasts about your progress, although they can kind of follow that along on your fundraising pages as well. The good thing about our online fundraising pages, if you just take a look at the screen, you have the opportunity to customize this with your own fundraising goals, with also your own little message there that prior to Nicole's trip to Ecuador, there's a space for you to fill in your own message, kind of your story, if you will, and that the video that's right next to that section is a space where you can actually record a video of yourself speaking. These are really, this is going to be a really great resource, because honestly, when people see you speaking and they can feel the passion in your eyes, that's going to make them want to donate. So these pages are not only going to be a great way to collect donations, they're really engaging and they're really great. They're unique. They're different than a normal online fundraising page, not only because they're customized to each individual trip and they go to your trip on the back end, but they have that video option and the story option, so you can kind of write your story and then speak to it as well. Another online fundraising pages have been really successful is if they creates their own little handmade business cards with link to their page and then hands those out to people as they encounter them. So maybe around the holidays, if people aren't able to have any cash or checks to donate to your campaign, just give them your little fundraising business card with the link to your page. You can hand that to them, maybe print a bunch, cut them out, hand them the business card, and they can take it home and donate when they have some time later. This is also great if you're going door to door, shoveling snow or raking leaves. You don't have to. They don't have anything to, pay this right on the spot. You can give them your business card, and they can make a donation online while you're just shoveling the snow. That's another great way to take advantage of your online fundraising page. And another, even a great way that I've seen some fundraisers use their fundraising page is by using it as a point of sale system. Now, this is a great example of this is last year we had two sisters who were fundraising together for their trip, and they actually made handmade soup, and they put it in these awesome little mason jars, and they sold this delicious soup. And in order to take payment for their soup, they directed their patrons to their online fundraising page, or customers to their online fundraising page, and someone would make a payment for their soup, so $20, and then the girls would deliver the soup to them later. So they used it as a way to take payment for something that they were selling. There's many different ways that you can use an online fundraising page, and as soon as we have our Me2We version of the fundraising pages, we'll let everybody know so that you can get yours started right away and really take advantage of that for the holidays. So now we're going to move on to sponsorship and partnerships. I'll talk a little bit more about some tips and tricks on how to get you to where you need to be in order to approach potential businesses. So we're going to answer a couple of general questions about sponsorships and partnerships. Now, first, we want to talk about what is a sponsorship. What is a sponsor? A sponsor is an individual or entity, so a business, who organizes and is committed to the development of a product, program, or project. So that's more of like a dictionary definition of what is a sponsorship. So let's break that definition down. So a sponsor is an individual or entity, so this could be any type of donor to you, who organizes and is committed to the development of a product, program, or project. So here, the product, program, or project is really going to be you and your fundraising campaign for your trip. So this is an individual or entity who is committed to the development of your trip and yourself. So that's a sponsor. It could be anybody. A sponsor doesn't have to necessarily be a business. A sponsor can be any individual or entity who's really committed to helping you out. So when I think about a sponsorship, a general sponsorship, I kind of go back to earliest encounters with a sponsor, and think about when you maybe played on a soccer team or a sports team and had a sponsor and someone's name on your jersey. This is a sponsor. This relationship here with your sponsor is mutually beneficial because they're buying all your jerseys, but their name's on the jersey. So people who are watching you play are going to see the name of their business. So that's kind of the way a sponsorship works, and how a sponsor is kind of benefiting from you, but you're also benefiting from them. So this is a great time for us to talk a little bit about a couple of examples of potential sponsors who've been friendly to fundraisers in the past. So an example of some great potential sponsors that have been successful have been community associations, especially in Canada, called Rotary Clubs, Lion Clubs. I'm not sure everybody's heard of those before, but it's a quick Google search and you can find one that's actually in your community or in your neighborhood, and that'll be the one that you're going to want to approach. So think local, local pizza shops, local pubs, hairdressers, dentists, etc. For me, when I went on one of my first trips, my hairdresser was very, very supportive. Not only did she donate towards my trip, she also gave me some product that I could use as a raffle or auction at an upcoming fundraising event. So when you think who sponsors, you want to think of local, small businesses, places that you frequent, places that maybe your family and friends have connections to. They're always a great place to start, and I'm always going to suggest when you're thinking of who, grab a handy dandy list and starting to that with all of your potential targets, people that you want to approach for potential support. And again, all these places that I'm mentioning here and all of the places that you will approach, you will definitely hear some no's. Not everybody will be able to donate to your trip, but it doesn't hurt to ask. So if you're hearing no, keep asking. Keep options open and keep being resilient, and you'll ensure that you get that kind of positive reaction. So it's a good question. Why would someone sponsor you? And this is something that we just kind of briefly chatted about earlier, but this is the value in exchange for a donation. So lots of sponsors actually get a value in exchange for supporting your trip. So this is something like that soccer team who gets their logo on all of your jerseys so that everybody can, promotes their business. Another way is, the opportunity for them to advertise, increase their business. For example, a restaurant that you're going to send your friends and family to on a Monday night, probably a night that they're not very busy in general. So that's going to be a good thing for them. They're going to get an increased amount of business, and you're going to get some support for your trip. Another way to offer value in exchange for a donation is perhaps you can give them a positive review on Yelp or on the internet. You can give them a positive review, and then they'll be rewarded from that when other people read that positive review. Or a lot of these smaller businesses, even bigger businesses, have a policy called corporate social responsibility. And a lot of these businesses really put aside some money every year to invest back in their community and to young people in leadership skills building. So this is exactly what you're doing. So there are businesses that are interested in sponsoring you. They may do so based on corporate social responsibility. Now, a little bit about how to get sponsors and some tips and tricks. I usually start with these kind of steps, these following 6 steps, taking advantage of these. So we're going to go through these six steps really quickly. Is making connections, and by that we want you to start thinking of companies that you may already have existing contact with. Using your extended network, things that we talked about, expanding that network, parents, friends, contacts of contacts, and ask maybe them for an introduction. Social media can be a really useful tool in identifying indirect relationships that you never knew that you had. So that's a great way to make connections. Identifying the right person to connect with. This is a really, really important step. Make sure you approach the right person at these businesses, the store or the company, the manager, person responsible for corporate or social responsibility. Those are usually the most appropriate person to connect with. You're definitely going to want to do some research to find out their name, and if you can, approach them personally and directly. In businesses where there's no formal corporate social responsibility policy, donations are often made at the discretion of the manager. So you're going to want to connect with the manager or with a franchise owner or something like that. I think non-monetary support. This is super important because you want to only a small amount of all company giving is in cash, and it's often easier to persuade a small local business, particularly one that you may not have had much contact with before. It's easier to persuade them to give you something tangible than it is to convince them to give you money. And this is the reality. So asking for items to auction or offer as raffle prizes is a really good approach. Restaurants, for example, they can ask for to donate a dinner or dinners or gift certificate, or local grocer might be persuaded to offer a food or something for an event. Forms of non-monetary support might be, including a flyer for an event that you're holding in a staff meeting or allowing you to sell holiday cards around their office. These are all great ways that different small businesses can also support that aren't necessarily monetary. And again, a little bit more about this already, but thinking about what you can offer in return. So where it's appropriate, think about what you're prepared to offer in return, such as like a public acknowledgement, publicity. Most companies give out of self-interest rather than just being nice. Again, just the reality. It's important to remember that that's the way they're thinking when you're approaching them. So if you're asking for sponsorships, think about what the company might want from you or might want to be associated with you for. So this could maybe include traveling on your trip, wearing the company's logo, taking some pictures, posting those on Facebook. Also, other small businesses may unaware that there are other benefits that you could use, like putting a positive review on Yelp, or sharing your story with a local newspaper and talking about who supported you. So you're prepared to tell them all of the ways that you can help them out. Another great way that users have been able to offer value in exchange for a donation is when they're back from their trip, they're willing to do a workshop with the staff who supported them and talking a little bit more about their trip. Taking the ask. You don't want to ramble on too long. You want to get to the point, and the is asking them for what you're looking for. So I always recommend face-to-face meetings are usually the best way to ask for what you need. Fundraising reference letter that we're going to be talking about really shortly will be something that you can take with you. But I always recommend that a fundraiser writes their own letter, which has in it their story. So you're going to want to maybe have a meeting or email them to see if you can do a meeting with them, have your fundraising reference letter, as well as your personal letter. Those are always a great thing to go into these conversations with. And then you're going to follow up with a telephone call, maybe a week or two later, allowing them for some time to familiarize themselves with your ask and what you're fundraising for, your story. And this is a good opportunity to maybe meeting again to discuss how many partnerships or sponsorship relationships or value will work. Tip is number 6. You're always going to want to say thank you, and I know we're probably just so grateful and excited about getting a donation from anybody that I don't doubt for a second that you'll be the type of people who are going to be thankful and make sure that you say that. But it's also just an important thing to mention. Even if they're not able to donate, you want to thank them for their time. Speaking to potential sponsors, on the left-hand side here, you'll see a letter. Now, this is your fundraising reference letter, and this is something that will be available to you on portal in the upcoming weeks. If you haven't already gotten one from me, I custom them for fundraisers. If you haven't gotten one from me, this will be available through your portal. You'll just have to click a button, and all of the blanks will fill in with all of your information. It's actually signed by Mark and Craig, so it'll be a great thing to approach businesses with, and that with you as well as your personal story. So that's a reference letter. Just gives a little bit of legitimacy to your campaign. When you're potential sponsors, I know we already talked about tips and tricks on the last slide, but a couple of things that I wanted to mention to consider when you're having these conversations. Again, I really want to make sure that hitting this point home. You want to tell your story. Make sure that you're as passionate as possible and you're making eye contact and you're convincing them what you need, what you're asking for, because you're so passionate. So talent is very important. Again, using the right tone. You want to be energetic. You want to be professional. A lot of times, especially if you're going to be talking to them on the phone or by email, tone is very important, more important than the words that you're choosing to say. Sure that you sound upbeat, you sound energetic, you sound grateful. These are really great things to consider as well, and you want to practice in front of the mirror before you go in to have your first conversation. Equally is body language. You had a conversation with someone before who's just, doesn't have that body language that looks like they're interested in what you're saying. So this is like shoulders back, this is eye contact, this is staring at the ground. These are things that you definitely want to be mindful of, and again, can practice before you have your first conversation. Being positive, being excited, being passionate. These are all things that were my go-tos when I fundraised, for all of my trips. Actually, whenever I fundraised, you want to be engaging. You want people to, want to listen to you and want to hear what you have to say. So having a good attitude is really important as well. And in person is always the best bet because you're able to take advantage of your tone, your body language, and attitude. In person is the best way to do that. What to ask for? This is another great question. Oftentimes when you go in to approach potential sponsors, you can do it two different ways. You can ask for a generic donation of whatever they're able to give, or if you're approaching someone like a travel agency, ask for something specific, like the cost of your flights. If you're approaching maybe clothing store, you can ask for your trip clothing or your backpack or something like that. Think about what is going to be the most catchy thing for them to contribute towards. So now we're going to move on from the second fundraising bucket onto the third fundraising bucket. Now this is selling an item to make a profit. Very exciting stuff here. Not only are you going to fundraise to raise money to get on your trip, item to make a profit, especially if it's something that you've handcrafted. I'm telling you, this is a huge skill. What you're doing is creating a small business. If you're able to create something and sell it to make a profit, that's economics. That's entrepreneurial skills. That's something that's going to benefit you forever. So I'm a big fan of this fundraising bucket, and there's so many possibilities here. This could be anything under the sun. Just that fundraisers think about a couple of key points when they're trying to figure out what the best thing to sell to make a profit is. First, consider any unique access to resources that you might have. For example, I had a fundraiser last year whose uncle had a silk screen machine. So she was able to print t-shirts for a relatively inexpensive price, and she sold t-shirts on campus to fundraise for her trip. Think about what access you have to unique resources. Another fundraiser last year, her mom was highly involved in aromatherapy, so they were able to acquire aromatherapy beads that she made into bracelets, and she sold those for her trip. Very awesome. So that kind of unique access that you might have. How would people in your target network be interested in purchasing? So for example, on the bottom right-hand picture here, this is handmade holiday chocolate gifts. So this fundraiser made beautiful truffles and homemade chocolates around holidays. So this was something that people were keen to buy around the holidays because they need it for hostess gifts or they're having company over. So think about what the people in your network would be interested in buying. So maybe you're in university and you want something that's not super expensive that a lot of university students are going to be interested in. So right above the handmade holiday chocolate gifts on the top right, these hand stamped keychains might be something really cool to sell on campus. Also, you've got on the top left, fundraiser that we're working with this year is doing these amazing mugs, just buying a bunch of plain mugs in bulk and then painting them with custom acrylic paint. It looks gorgeous, and they're selling them at craft sales. Something that I think is really cool and popular this year, handmade soaps. These are beautiful handmade soaps. You could do soap, candles, bath bombs, but think about how well, your house is going to smell if you're making handmade soaps. And if you are, aware of a small store who an organic network, people who want, homemade products that don't have chemicals, those people would be very interested in buying, organic handmade soap. So if that's something that people in your network would be interested in purchasing, something that I would definitely recommend selling to make a profit. And the last is think about where you're going to sell your product. So whether it's craft sales, farmers markets, bazaars, those are always great places. Also, sometimes small businesses will be open to letting you set up a little booth or a stand outside their store or outside their space, or might even take some of your product and sell it on their cash register or something like that. So think about where you're going to sell your product as well when you're also considering what you're going to sell. This is a really great idea, and there's so many different possibilities. This is also going to be a really great idea to take advantage of around the holidays. Next fundraising webinar that I'll be holding in 2 weeks will actually be a really cool fundraising webinar that's focused on all kinds of really exciting holiday festive fundraising ideas. It's my personal favorite fundraising webinar every year because I love the holidays and I love talking about holiday fundraising ideas because this is the prime time for fundraising. So selling an item to make a profit is going to be a really great idea around this time of year, especially because you've got lots of people who are purchasing gifts. It'll be a great idea around Mother's Day, around Valentine's Day, but especially around the holidays. So if you're considering selling an item to make a profit, this is a really good time to kind of start taking advantage of the holiday market. So that was the third fundraising bucket. We're going to jump into the fourth fundraising bucket. Now, the fourth fundraising bucket is fundraising events. Now, this is what I think a lot of people consider when they think of funding. They think of the events. I want to just make sure that everybody, is very, very clear that a fundraising event does take time to plan, lots of time and effort. And if you have a fundraising team, some friends, your family who's willing to support, this could be a really, really, really great way to pull in lots of money all at once. But just sure that you're remembering that there's going to be a lot of planning, and you're going to have to pay attention to details. So I'm just going to kind of go over a couple of tips on how to plan an epic fundraising event for your fundraising. Should usually be booking a venue. So even before you kind of plan what type of event, you're going to want to kind of nail down into different larger fundraising event types, but a venue should be one of your first priorities because you're not able to have an event without a venue. So you have the best idea in the world, but if you don't have a spot to have it, you definitely are going to you want to consider a venue. So definitely think of where you're going to have it. So who do you know who has access to maybe a cafe or a community center, a church, your school, lots of different places that you could hold an event, but always consider that first. Set a fundraising goal and a budget for the event. So how much do you want to raise and how much are you willing to spend before you're even going to pull in any money? So always make sure you've got a goal and a budget before your event. You're going to want to make sure you invite the right people and sell tickets. And there's nothing worse than planning a huge fundraiser and then the night of the event, nobody shows up and you're not going to make any money because you haven't thought to sell tickets. You're just hoping people attend. So sell tickets is really important. It's a great way to ensure that you're going to make money because realistically, if you sell tickets and even then they decide not to come, you still already have their money. So that's going to make sure that you don't end up spending more than you make. Don't forget about advertising and marketing. So it could be social media, this could be creating some flyers. You're definitely going to want to advertise and market your event and get as many people interested as possible. You want to maximize your fundraising by getting additional donations from both attendees and non-attendees. So you want to have a raffle, maybe you're going to sell rafikis or some jewelry at the event as well. You're going to want to make sure you're doing, you have some local talent so people can, feel like they're getting value for their ticket sale or the ticket cost. But yeah, you want to maximize your fundraising by making sure you're getting additional donations from attendees and non-attendees. So you have a big donation jar or something that's on top of the price of the ticket. Also encourage your ticket buyer, your network, to spread the word. So create a fundraising event or an event on Facebook that they can easily share. So just with a quick button or tweet or something like that. So encourage people to share and spread the word. The farthest you can get that word, the best. So a really amazing fundraising ideas that are and were this year. So on the far right, there's a phenomenal, beautiful dessert and coffee house that I think was one of the well-organized flyers that I've ever seen. This was a fundraiser that was held last month. I guess it's November, so in October last month. On right next to it on the left-hand side, this is a benefit concert that is going to happen in March. And now this is a huge fundraising event that will hopefully draw quite a crowd because it's got a really great local talent that's attending as well. So you could do, a huge scale concert, benefit concert, or a smaller scale dessert and coffee house, which is more local talent. So the word oyster, you just again want to make sure that you're planning properly and organized. So you have like a flyer like the one on the right, or you're posting on Facebook like the one on the left. So you're organized with a fundraising event. It could be anything under the stars, a yoga class. It could be a dance. It could be all kinds of different fundraising events, a dodgeball tournament. There are so many different ways that you could take advantage of having an event to make some money and selling tickets. We're now moving to the fifth final fundraising bucket. Now this fundraising bucket was kind of the catch-all last fundraising bucket, so the other fundraising activities. Explain other fundraising activities. It sounds a little bit vague, but what I mean by activities is things that you can do yourself to raise money for your trip or camp, that you can do with your person. Think of things like this picture on the left, a bottle drive. This is an event, or you're not selling anything, you're not online, or you're not looking for sponsorships, but you're just taking your friends and yourself, and you're going to collect bottles, and you're going to take them to the recycling depot or the beer store, which will then give you money back for your bottles. They'll take bottles and cans as well. Drive. Example of ways that you could fundraise with yourself or activity is instead of gifts for the holidays or for your birthday, you can then have people donate maybe into your trip rather than to have gifts. Another is odd jobs. So this could be cleaning one's garage, or helping somebody with Christmas thing around the holidays, or this could be babysitting or pet sitting that we talked about earlier. Another, teaching and coaching. For me, when I fundraised for my first trip, because I played hockey, I ended up doing power skating. So I taught power skating to younger teams in my area. So what can you use your skills to help with? So this could be tutoring, like we mentioned, or singing lessons, or art lessons, or anything kind of like that. Like we just talked about, a bottle drive or recycling drive. Not only can you collect bottles and cans, but you can also collect old electronics and drop those off to different locations and get donations for that. And again, services, so babysitting, pet sitting, you could rake leaves or shovel snow, especially if you're in Canada. This winter is supposed to be a terrible winter with lots of snow. You could get your snow shoveling services up and running sooner rather than later. I know a fundraiser this year who's planning on taking advantage or targeting all of her neighbors who are going away for holidays around December, January. They're going away, maybe going down to the beach. So she's going to shovel their driveways well away on holiday, and she's going to make a profit that way. What can you do to raise some money for your trip? Those will be the other fundraising activities, and these are also really great tools to fill any fundraising gaps. So maybe you're getting closer to your next trip payment, getting a little bit stressed out, why not do a little bit of dog walking in the next couple of weeks, especially in the winter, because nobody wants to walk dog in the winter, in order to fill some gaps towards your fundraising. So really good gap fillers. And last, I haven't mentioned our school fundraisers, connecting with your principal or your school to see if you're able to hold something like on care at school. For example, a jelly bean count. Maybe you can have a big jar of jelly beans where people pay to take a guess, or a coin wars battle between homerooms where everybody collects as many coins as possible and you get to keep the coins, and whoever wins the battle gets a pizza lunch or something like that. So connect with your school to see if you're able to host a fundraiser at school. So maybe having a outside the cafeteria. So just sure that you're connecting with your principal to see if you're able to fundraise at school if they're supportive. Okay, moving on and wrapping up. We walked through the 5 fundraising buckets, which are now on your screen, actually as buckets. So really what I want everybody to think of when they're thinking of these 5 fundraising buckets, and I know the more that you're going to think about each of them, you're going to come up with different unique ideas that are going to fall into each of these buckets that you're going to want to try. So the key is, if you have your hand in multiple fundraising buckets at the same time, you're going to maximize your fundraising. And this is really just going to work out that because you're filling gaps and you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, and you're keeping busy, right? You've got so depending on when you're signed up and when you're traveling, you've got 4 or 5 months to fundraise. Why don't you break that down into two different items from each bucket every month? So maybe every month you're sending an e-blast about your online fundraising campaign twice. You're approaching 2 different businesses. You're selling your item for profit at 2 different locations. You're maybe planning maybe a fundraising event because that's a lot of work, but you're doing 2 other fundraising activities. So this is where you're going to maximize your fundraising, and I hope this is some picture of these buckets kind of paints a clear image of what it's going to take in order to get to your goal as quickly as possible, because I know you can do it. It's been done by hundreds of fundraisers in the past, and this is just the best way to get there. So, with all being said, I want to talk a little bit more about what's next through the fundraising program and with webinars. So like I mentioned at the beginning, our live fundraising webinars will be held every 2 weeks. Sometimes I will hold a little bit more frequently, but generally every 2 weeks, and I'll continue to go deeper into each of those 5 fundraising buckets during each webinar. So like I said, next week we'll be talking about ideas. The week after that, the webinar after that, we'll be talking about selling an item to make a profit. Inbox for funding resources and webinar invites. I'll always send the login details by email. I'll also be posting them on Facebook, but I always send them by email as well, so that if you keep an eye on your inbox, you're not gonna miss any of the resources or webinar invites. Yay! Webinar is Tuesday, November 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we're focusing on my favorite yearly webinar, Fun Festive Holiday Fundraising Ideas, from all 5 fundraising buckets. So we'll talk about all of the different buckets and all kinds of really awesome festive holiday ideas that you can get started. And because we're holding it at the end of November, you'll have a whole month to get your fundraising in order and executed before Christmas. And if you ever want to talk about your plan or do brainstorming together, please do feel free to reach out to us here if you want to discuss your plan or do brainstorming, or if you have any questions at all. We're always happy to help here, and we love talking about fundraising. Not only me, but all of my colleagues. I think the excitement is contagious, so we do love to talk about fundraising and to support your fundraising any way that we can. This is our number, and you can feel free to give us a ring, and we're really happy to help any way that we can. time in the webinar that I'm going to stop talking because I've talked for quite some time, and I apologize for going over a little bit. But I'm going to leave the floor open. If anybody has any questions, please do feel free to type those in the chat room. I think there's a couple of them in there, so I'll be definitely those. But if you have any other questions, feel free to type them in the chat room, or if you do want to share something with the entire group, just shoot me a message in the chat as well, and I'll unmute you, and you can love to share with everybody else here. So last, I do just want to thank everybody so much for coming out tonight and spending over an hour with me chatting about the 5 fundraising buckets. I know you'll all be able to knock this out of the park. I've seen, countless fundraisers make this happen, and this year we've got some really passionate fundraisers and really passionate world travelers and campers, and I just have no doubt that you'll be able to knock this out of the park. So I'm completely with you 100% of the way. In your corner, you've got all of us here at Meet a We to support you. So with that, I'll say thanks again for coming. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and happy fundraising. If there's any questions in the chat that will be applicable to the whole group, I will definitely answer those as well.